Welcome into Celtics Late Night. Ben Vallis here along with Jake Eisenberg. The Celtics win 120-95. Jaylen Brown was awesome. Derek White was awesome. Yeah. Jake Eisenberg also awesome. How's it going, Jake?
Thank you. Happy to be here. We're back. Lucky hat. We're looking at, what are we at now? 3-4 in a row. A lot of wins in a row. The Celtics have played now 6 games in like 23 days. We've had just not nearly enough Celtics basketball. And today I felt like, I got what I needed, to get me back on track. The Celtics drugs right back into the system. This one was great. And, I watched this one on delay and had to work. Ridiculous actually, had to work. And so I wasn't able to watch this one live. And so whenever I do that and I watch it on media freeze, I feel like I'm just operating in this alternate universe. And I'm like, is someone injured? Did something happen? What's going to happen? Like everyone knows except for me, what's going to happen. And so you don't see any of the discourse. And then also you experience the game with no breaks.
In isolation as well.
Yeah, in isolation, no breaks. So when you get frustrated with the thing, Joe calls a timeout. You don't have to sit through the frustration of the 3 minutes. You don't have to sit through halftime. You're just like straight back into it. Mm-hmm. And this game, they obviously were kind of just up 10 for the entirety of the game, pretty much. But in the first half, it was like, okay, we got up anywhere between 9 to 16. We couldn't quite push the lead into okay, we're in blowout territory. They kept kind of hanging on, and that was for a variety of reasons. The C's couldn't quite hit a couple of threes to push things out in that first half. They only shot 20-something% from three. Yeah, 27% from three in the first half, and obviously that flipped in the second half. And it was Pritchard had 2 in and outs. Drew Holiday had an in and out. Tatum got close to the rim a couple times, but it felt like they were just a small tipping point away from blowing this thing out. And halfway through the third quarter, we finally got it.
Yeah, and at the same time, a small tipping point from Donovan Mitchell going crazy and bringing it back to a tie game or even taking the lead, which they did for a brief moment in the first quarter. After the game, Jaylen Brown, who was awesome, talked about why the game was close early, particularly in the first half.
Defense, got to defend. I think the game was closer because we wasn't really making shots, but they were scoring on the other end. We gave up a lot of baskets. I think what allowed the game to open up is that we kept defending, and then the shots started going in. So defense, being able to get stops allows us to play kind of the lifestyle that we want, and that's get up shots, get up threes. But we weren't getting no stops in the first half, or at least in the first quarter, and that's why the game was a lot closer.
Yeah, it took them a while to ratchet up the defense in this one. It wasn't great to begin with, but as a team and as a Derek White, so prolific offensively that it kind of didn't matter. I'll get to the defense in a second. You mentioned the three-point shooting disparity, 22% from three in the first half, like you said. We ended the game shooting... Okay, 27, sorry. Yeah. We ended the game shooting just under 40% from three. We shot over 50% from three in the second half. On the margins, we out-rebounded the shit out of them, a lot due to Luke Cornett, who we will get to as well. We'll get to the individual performances shortly. 92-90 on the field goal attempts, so that was kind of a wash as far as the shot margin. Jaylen and Derek, they did the bulk of the scoring, but the pressure put the Cavs defense... Sorry, let me start that again. Again, pitfalls of doing this show live. The pressure on the Cavs defense was coming from everywhere. So while the bulk of the scoring came from Jaylen and Derek, there's threats all over the court for the Celtics. And that means single coverage for everybody except for Jason Tatum. And it puts everybody in a position to cook. And in this case, it was Jaylen and Derek. But really, throughout the rest of the course of the series, we'll see how that goes. But you can see that scoring punch coming from pretty much everybody, especially as long as that defensive focus remains as it is on Jason Tatum, like it was in this one.
Yeah, this is the point of this team, is that they are a team. In every sense of the word, up and down this roster, man, everyone just contributes up and down. Hauser goes, 0 for 1, but I thought he came out there and had a nice defensive possession on, I want to say it was actually Donovan Mitchell. I forget who exactly it was, but he was fine. Didn't hit a shot. He took one shot. But that you're absolutely right. It's the pressure points across the roster. Like Horford, Holiday, Pritchard, Tatum all have like 40, low 40s or high 30% field goal percentage. And it doesn't matter because it always feels like there's going to be one or two guys that hits that high level of efficiency. And then that's all you really need for it to even out, for it to be as prolific as it ends up being. Like you end up getting up 120 points and your shooting splits are great. But yeah, I think I loved Jalen being like, if we didn't, we weren't able to like actually live the lifestyle, that we like to live. I was like, Missoula ball has progressed from being, a basketball philosophy to a lifestyle. Missoula ball has become a way of life. And I'm like, there's Buddhism, Judaism, and there's Missoula ball for the highest level of enlightenment.
I want that T-shirt. Let's print that shit up. Get it in the merch store, which you can find the merch store at least, and then the links in the description below. So yeah, sticking at sort of macro level offensively, we certainly did go at Darius Garland. That was no secret. That was going to be a strategy. Poor Darius Garland, who did not have a particularly good game on either side of the ball. He is small. And similar approach to that of the Miami Heat, where like in the Heat's case, Tyler Hero was clearly the target, but we didn't like overreach in that facet on that corner of the pantry. It was sort of a nice diverse attack towards the Cavs, but certainly Darius Garland was not spared. And then the Celtics getting to the rim at ease in this game. No Bam Adebayo, he's not walking through that door from the Cavs' perspective. Jarrett Allen can barely breathe while he tries to sleep at night, apparently, is like the almost verbatim update on his current health status.
That was rough. Because I was fast-forwarding through. I was like, I'm probably going to miss any Jarrett Allen updates, but then right at the end, they did both the Porzingis and the Allen update, and it's like, he can't lift his arms or sleep. And I'm like, seems bad for Cleveland.
Great for us.
I would say.
Great for us. Not that we wish injury on anybody, but we're trying to win a fucking championship. So come on. So offensively, obviously that's it at a macro level, and there's some great individual performances that we want to get to. But defensively, our guy, Wayne Spooney, he had a great piece go up on Celtics blog yesterday. The link is in the description below right now on how Joe Mazzulla will walk the tightrope between sticking with the scheme and having to react on the fly based on how the opposition is playing, and how Joe has sensibly been better at not overreacting to early results and sticking with the scheme. And he did that in this game. We were switching 1 through 4. Drew starting a lot of possessions out on Donovan Mitchell, playing drop against screens defended by our 5, so Horford or Luke, and I think Tillman came in for a few minutes there. Maybe our 5 came up a little more in drop, but that was sort of the extent of the adjustments. They were hot shooting early. Okoro hit 3 threes, I think, in the first half. Donovan Mitchell was everywhere, prolifically shooting from 3. We didn't overreact. We stuck with the same coverage. Maybe we ratcheted up the effort a little bit there, Jake, but for the most part, we stuck with the game plan. And obviously, it bears out in the score and the result. It worked to our benefit.
Yeah, you absolutely don't want to overreact in game 1. Man, Okoro, it's funny how our brains, or my brain, it's like, he can't hurt me. Like he hit 3 above the break threes in the first half, and every single one I was like, no way, that's not going in. And he looked, to his credit, he ends up going, he hits those 2 monster shots early, and that was another reason this game stayed close. Is that Okoro ends up going like 3 for 4 early, but he ends the game 3 for 8, and it's like, because this is, I find, a very common theme from like series to series or game to game in the playoffs. It's like a player that has an awful game, becomes quite hesitant, loses their confidence. It looks like when they come out to start the next game, they look confident. They like might knock down 2 shots or so. If it's like a star player, this kind of doesn't apply. But if it's a role player, someone like Isaac Okoro, who looked like he refused to shoot towards the end of the Cavs Magic series. So he comes out, he's had time to like reset himself, comes into this one, hits a couple of threes, and I'm like, okay, this would be like monstrous for Cleveland if he's able to rediscover his confidence. He was a 40%, 39% 3-point shooter on relatively low volume, and he hit those shots. I was like, yeah, I didn't even get any Caleb Martin vibes. Not even in a little bit, which is interesting because it's like, in theory, you'd think that I would get some of that. And that's been something that I've found interesting emotionally. It's like, I wasn't nervous at all for this game or for the series. Whereas, like, I literally didn't sleep the night before the Heat series. And I'm not sure if that's because now I've gone through, seen them actually, like, play well through that devil magic. And I'm like, my objective brain has finally been able to take over a little bit here. Went on a little bit of a tangent here, but
no. I'm aligned with you, Jake. I felt exactly the same way. I slept soundly last night.
Yeah.
The game was on at 9 a.m. here, obviously 7 p.m. on the east coast of the US, and I wasn't like angsty at all leading up to that. I was like, oh, it's 9 o'clock. Pop the game on.
Yeah.
Guess I'll watch the Celtics dominate the Cavs in game 1 of round 2 of the 2024 NBA playoffs. Maybe if I say these words out loud, it'll help us with the algorithm. Subscribe, hit that like button. But yeah, none of the anxiety, and even with we can't really say devil magic when it comes to the Cavs, but even with some of that 3-point shooting variance leaning in favor of the Cavs early in this game, you just didn't feel like it had any long-term substance. I think the key difference is, like, the Cavs are definitely better than Miami. Like, especially once you rule out the historic PTSD and the rivalry going back a decade or so between the Celtics and the Heat, Donovan Mitchell just puts real pressure on an NBA defense. Like, despite maybe the lack of talent around him, which is probably an unfair statement because they do have, like, some legitimately talented players around them. Evan Mobley, I think, can be better than he was today. Darius Garland, you could say the same for him. But Donovan Mitchell just really strains your defense. And I think a lot of those open shots we gave up early, and also the Cavs found themselves open under the rim, completely unguarded on 2 occasions. One was Max Strus, and then earlier in the game was Mook Morris as well. And again, that's just the Celtics reacting. I know, but it's the Celtics reacting to that real gravitational pull for the first time these playoffs. Like, Tyler Hero, I'm sorry, they don't love you like that. Like, it's Donovan Mitchell all day. And I think early on there was an adjustment period to that level of gravity, and that's the first time we've had to react to that so far these playoffs.
So I think you're right. In a vacuum, this Cleveland team is definitely better than that Miami team, especially without Jimmy Butler. But I do think matchup-wise, that Heat defense is still better than this Cavs defense, especially without Jared Allen, even with Jared Allen, as far as, like, matching up with this Celtics team. Because even that Heat team, they're just so well coached. They know how to play the Celtics. They know how to play Jaylen Brown, I would say, even more than anyone, and Jason Tatum. But, like, look at how comfortable Jaylen Brown was today. And so it's yes, the Cavs are better objectively. Donovan Mitchell's a better player than Bam Adebayo, but, like, Bam Adebayo is a defensive player, and the Heat is a defensive team. Spo is a defensive coach. I think that, to me, like, they're kind of a wash a little bit. And then I just got to watch Cleveland in that Magic series, and I'm like, you know, I have eyes. I watched 7 games of this thing. I'm like, I know what the Celtics are capable of, even last year compared to this year's team. That's even better, even without Porzingis. But yeah, defensively, going back to your original point here, the half-court defense I thought was pretty great for the most of the game. Early, I thought they struggled a little bit, but as the game went along, the, like, half-court defense was, like, ridiculous. The drop defense was perfect. You know, yesterday or the day before on the preview, I was like, this Cavs team, its drop defense is, like, kind of perfect. You got to get over those screens. You got to limit those pull-up threes, and you live with them in the mid-range. But then at the rim, like, the rim protection of the corn dog, man.
Oh,
I mean,
cornhub.com.
The corn dog rim protection was unreal, but, like, across the board, Tatum rim protection, our rim protection, but Cornette had the best rim protection of any Celtic out there today.
Yeah.
And so the half-court defense I thought was mostly excellent. The thing that was terrible for a good chunk of the game was the transition defense. That was awful. Off a lot of makes as well.
Yes.
Off makes, back the other way, dunks, 3-point shots. They lost Mitchell in transition. There was that quarter time, whatever, interview, and Missoula was asked about Donovan Mitchell, and he was just like, sprint back. I was like, yeah, I'm sure he's aware as we are. It's like the transition defense was atrocious, and I think that's something that they can really clean up. I do think there was an element to me in the first half of them looking a little rusty. There's nothing, you can't simulate playoff basketball in practice.
Yeah.
You just can't. And that's part of it.
There was a huddle that the broadcast cut to in the first half where it was Joe Mazzulla just being like, we have to be better defensively. We will be better defensively. And that played out in the second half.
Yeah.
And then the start of the fourth quarter, this is kind of where we blew the game open. Donovan Mitchell had to sit. He just had to. He was completely gassed. Like, he's only human. He can't play the full game. He's not Josh Hart playing under Tom Thibodeau. And that was like a 90-second stint where he sat, and the Celtics blew the lead out from like 10 to 20 in a heartbeat. And it was all Jaylen Brown, bit of Derek White, bit of Peyton Pritchard as well, I believe. And there was just no coming back from that with the lack of offensive firepower the Cavs have at that point. Now, look, before we went live, Jake, there was a bunch of comments in the stream here. Talk about Jaylen Brown. When I wake up in the morning and I listen to you guys,
I know.
I want to hear you talk about Jaylen Brown. So we're going to rattle through all the individual performances and have a lot of fun with that because there were some spicy ones. But first, here's a quick word from our sponsor, Prize Picks.
Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to get in on the action while you watch your favorite sports and players. You just pick more or less on 2 or more player stats and watch the winnings roll in. March is over, but the biggest moments of college basketball tip off in the month of April. Be a part of the action on Prize Picks for both men's and women's college basketball. And get in on the playoff action and win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during basketball's postseason. You can even make the play-in rounds seem interesting since we all know the Celtics won't be there. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make Prize Picks the #1 fantasy sports app. Personally, I'm looking at Derek White more on points because they are criminally low, and we all know Derek White is going to come up big in the postseason. So download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100.
Shout out to the dulcet tones of Wayne Spooney there, Jake, with the awesome Prize Picks ad read. And you got to check out Wayne Spooney's latest write-up. I mentioned it earlier on CelticsBlog.com about Joe Mazzulla walking the tightrope of decision-making and adjustment-making throughout the course of a playoff game and a playoff series. A really good read and a really unique look at the coaching perspective on playoff series for the Celtics in general. Prize Picks, download the app, use that code CLNS, get that $100 deposit first match, and supplement your hoops viewing experience. Go less or more on various picks through Celtics players and other NBA players and teams, and it's a really fun way to supplement your existing enjoyment of the NBA. But Jake, Jaylen Brown, speaking of enjoying the NBA, he was incredible. We suspected in our series preview pod that this might be more of a series for Jaylen compared to that of the Heat series. And it's only one game, but certainly seems to be the case. What do you think of Jaylen's performance in this one?
Oh, boy, man. This is one of the best Jaylen Brown playoff games ever, I think. Mm-hmm. This was as complete of a game you're going to get from any player, let alone just specifically Jaylen Brown. What do you want? The 30-plus points on ridiculous efficiency, the 100% from the free throw line. Just noting something that I've been tracking closely. Jaylen Brown has remained 100% from the free throw line since Tyler Hero headbutted Jaylen Brown's elbow in Game 5 of the first round. Thank you, Tyler Hero. It's like the movie Rookie of the Year where that guy broke his arm and became a Major League pitcher when he was in high school or something. I'm hoping that shout out Harrison Fagan on Twitter for that joke. And so they don't have anything for him. And I said it with the difference between this team and the Heat. Teams, I don't know if teams don't know how to do it like the Heat do it, or if it's like a confidence. It's just purely, it is a little devil magic-y where he's overthinking against the Heat, it felt like at times, even though he ends up having a good efficiency series against the Heat. He was so much more in control in today's game. This was the version of Jaylen Brown that we saw for the majority of the season. The guy that was 240 pounds, 6'6", improved decision-making, improved shot-making, improved at the rim, improved in every aspect of his game. This is the reason why he deserves to be All-NBA this year, to drop 32 on 12 for 18. And then also you throw in the defense. He had that ridiculous fucking block on Donovan Mitchell at the rim, and then the Celtics go back the other way. He was the best player on the court today, I think.
He was incredible. And he's been talking about it all playoffs so far, the importance of throwing the first punch. He started this game 5 of 5 from the floor, 4 of 4 from the line. This is all like in the first few minutes. And then later in the game, when the Cavs defense adjusted, he had that great corner kick to Peyton Pritchard early in the second for the corner 3. And then later, the Euro step and dump off to Drew Holiday right under the rim. He had the shooting chops. He had the playmaking chops. Defensively, he was fantastic. It's like you said, that's our old buddy, Jaylen Brown.
Hey.
Underwater workout Jaylen Brown, who right before the season started, someone sent a little underwater message in a bottle being like, Jaylen, it's time to come up rare. The season's about to start. Up he came, and I guess maybe he spent the Heat series back underwater again. I don't know, but he's back on ground level, breathing oxygen with the rest of us. As you bear with me while I finish out this analogy. And he was fantastic in this game. It's so good to see because I missed him. I personally missed Jaylen Brown, and now he appears to be back and thriving. It's been great.
I mean, Jason and Jaylen are similar to like this. It's just when they're cooking and when they're in control like this, maybe Jaylen even more so, he's so aesthetically pleasing to watch as well. Like the fadeaways, the physically overpowering of the other team. And then he has the swagger this year. He's had it all year. He's strutting around. He's feeling good about himself, as he should. And even in that press conference, talking about we weren't living the lifestyle we like to live. We had to get back, get back to the way that we enjoy living. My favorite, there's so many plays. I tried to I downloaded all the plays for a video later, but this is my personal favorite on first rewatch of all the Jaylen Brown buckets from today.
So it's an 11-point game, second 3 of the night for Garland. Jaylen Brown.
I'm just Jack Nicholson gif nodding at the screen right now for all the audio pod listeners.
Good.
Yes.
It's nothing overly complicated. It's just Isaac Okoro, their best perimeter defender. They run like a little screening action. Derek White in any screening action just always feels like it works. And then Jaylen goes straight through him, and Evan Mobley can't fucking help at the rim because he's scared to leave Al Horford in the corner because Jaylen's already made a couple of really nice passes in this game. It's just, and to dunk on someone when they're right on your hip like that, just to go straight through them. I mean, it's beautiful, man. It's beautiful.
I'm just so glad he's back. We need that version of Jaylen Brown. We need there's a lot of good talent, especially out west, and we'll end the pod talking about the playoff series out west and also Knicks Pacers. A lot of talent around the league, and we need the best versions of all of our players. So it's nice to see a glimpse of that version of Jaylen Brown again. Speaking of the best version of just humanity, Derek White.
Oh my God, dude.
Dude, his form, his 3-point form, not a hitch in sight. Not a fault. It's a flawless shooting form at this point. Add to that the confidence in which he's going up. Anytime he saw Darius Garland in his peripheral vision, whether it be directly in front of him or on the actual periphery, he was just jacking up shots. And I said to Spoonie earlier in our post-game immediate reaction, I don't think the plan was to shoot at that level of volume from Derek White's perspective. But once he saw the first couple go in, he was like, I'm not fucking missing. I'm just going to shoot. And everyone was like, yeah, dude. Yep, sounds good. Go for it. And he did, and he did not miss. It was perfect.
The empowerment of Derek White has just continued to blossom throughout this season, man. And to see it finally come together in the playoffs is so important because before the playoffs, I was like, there's no number for Derek White that I can point to that we need to hit a certain percentage for me to know that he's had a good playoffs. Maybe it's just fucking volume of threes, man, because when he's getting up those volumes, they go in. So it's why would he not shoot this many threes? Okay, do you want to guess for the entirety of the playoffs where Derek White ranks in 3-point attempts per game?
Attempts?
Yeah.
I mean, there's some chuckers out there, Jake.
Yeah, some chuckers out there, dude.
Yeah, okay. So, I don't know, 9th?
Third. He's third in all of the playoffs in 3-point attempts per game in the playoffs. And he is by far the most efficient of anyone so far in the playoffs that's anywhere near. There's not a single person above 50% until we get to 29th on this list. Luguentz Dort at 5.6 attempts per game. And Derek's shooting 9.3 threes per game. If we want to look at the last 3 games alone, because this is when he really went fucking nuclear. He's leading the NBA in the playoffs in 3-point attempts per game over the last 3 with 12.3 attempts at 54% from 3. I mean, Blob said it best in the chat here. Steph Curry with all NBA level defense. I mean, he's
There he is.
He's the man. He's the mistress. Like, this is the guy. And man, I don't know what I was like, hang on a second, here it comes. That's my guy, dude. That's my guy. He was never supposed to turn into this, but like, so like my wife hasn't watched a ton of Celtics games this year because I've been streaming so many of them, but we watched this one today and she's like, what's going on? And she's just sitting there laughing for the entirety of the game. I'm like, yeah, this has kind of been happening all year now. And this is just 2 years. He has those comments in the time off about, and in the press conference, like Joe Mazzulla being like, I love you, I believe in you, you're my point guard. And Derek saying like, there are some coaches that say that they empower you and they want you to be you and that kind of stuff, but Joe really walks the walk. And like, he's really talking in a way that, you know, makes me feel very confident that we're going to be able to keep Derek White long term, and speaks a lot to Joe. And Derek White's someone that he's just one of those guys. Like Jason Tatum doesn't need to be told to shoot more. Jaylen Brown doesn't need to be told to shoot more. Derek White has needed that throughout the entirety of his career. And Joe Mazzulla is just this beautiful Mazzulla, you know, the guru in his ear that he's Mazzulla, the Derek White whisperer.
Derek Whisperer.
The mistress whisperer in his ear, just being like, forget these Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown guys. Just shoot, Derek. This is your team. This is your team, Derek.
Jake Eisenberg, level 34, Marriott Hotel. He's waiting for you.
He'll be there. I'll be there. I'll be there. I am there.
Oh God, so good. Yeah, Derek White. What else can you say? Luke Cornett, he blocked Donovan Mitchell in his first stint off the bench in this game. He had 10 rebounds, 6 of them offensive rebounds. He was seen and heard barking at the Celtics, literally barking like a dog at the Celtics bench at one point in the game.
I missed that. That's awesome.
Just back up big. Al Horford played, like 20, less than 28 minutes in this one.
Unbelievable.
And was spelled by Luke Cornett and momentarily by Xavier Tillman as well. But Cornett, like he's been somewhat consistent with this now, but I think it's never not surprising given the starting point, at least expectations-wise, with how Luke might impact the team throughout the regular season, Jake, let alone the fucking playoffs. And here he is, like, just total legit impact off the bench.
I mean, this is the best game of Luke Cornett's career.
I think so.
It is. Like, this is the playoffs in the second round, and he came out there and defended Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland. He had Evan Mobley shook at times. Dude, the battling on the boards, man. It's incredible to see how far he's come, where I was like screaming, just please grab like 2 rebounds. For him to now grab 6 offensive rebounds in a playoff game is huge, dude. And like, we had Tony Pesta from the Cavs side of things on the pod, and I was like, I think Cavs fans are going to really get annoyed by how effective Luke Cornett is. Because in theory, it's like Kristaps Porzingis is out. We have a slither of a chance to at least make this series competitive. But I'm like, especially from a defensive perspective, I'm not sure I think there's a drop-off between Kristaps Porzingis rim protection and Cornett's. But the infrastructure of the Celtics defense is not compromised really by having Cornett out there instead of Kristaps Porzingis. Obviously, there's an offensive difference. But yeah, Tony's last name not being Pasta is a travesty. One of the more underrated names for Tony's name, which I've learned recently, is Tony Pesto. So I know Tony Pasta, but don't forget Tony Pesto as well. But yeah, so like Cornett, you can't say enough, dude. I know we're on the CLNS network right now. Like Bobby Manning, I was nowhere near the level of confidence and going out on a limb like Bobby Manning was when it came to Luke Cornett. But going back to, I don't even know if it was last season or this season, but I like to think that I was the highest on Luke Cornett out of anyone. I feel like I kind of went the other way quite quickly, as I tend to do at times. But he's I mean, completely shot all those expectations like out of the water.
Well, yeah, and it wasn't easy for him as far as presenting himself as the next option off the bench all season. Because I think for a little while, and it depends who you ask, but there was somewhat of a legitimate discussion to be had about whether it was going to be Cater or Cornet for a little while, because they both had really bad stretches at times, and they both had pretty good stretches. Although Cater, less of a sample size because he spent a lot of time in the G. And then Xavier Tillman comes along, and it's like, oh, no question, big teabag. Xavier Tillman, he's going to be our backup big. But then Luke just continued to shine with a diminished window of opportunity as well. And so there's like no argument now, given all of that, the hurdles at like the deep bench level that he's still been able to clear despite those obstacles. Of course, he's the first backup big off the bench, and for that to have all been said and done, and for him to still perform in these situations under the brightest of lights, Eastern Conference semifinals against, I'll say it, like I said earlier, a better team than the Heat, real impactful minutes. It's incredible, and like I led with, never not surprising given the context there.
I mean, sneaky moves by Brad Stevens to light a fire under Luke Cornet. I mean, between Neemias Cater coming in early in the season, being like, because there was definitely a groundswell for Cater over Cornet. I was very ardent against all of that. That was, and I'm so proud of myself for not falling for the Cater stuff. But Cornet raised his play once Cornet came, and then Brad brings in Tillman, and everyone's like, nice knowing you, Tillman. No, Cornet went to a new level again. And I couldn't believe, I was never someone who thought he would get more than a minimum. I think it's pretty likely he gets offered more than that at this point. But I mean, he's just playing better. Yeah, like Eric Weiss in the chat here. Like, he wasn't rebounding nearly at the same rate that he is now. He wasn't defending. He just became more of a dog. He was like, can you be 7'2" and like play with energy? And now he is, because he's a smart defender. He's like, reminds me of, I've mentioned the Kelly Olynyk comparisons before. Very positionally sound. And then offensively, he sets good screens, and he's going to offensive rebound and then get the ball movement. I mean, the drop-off is just not going to be that big in a series like this, where you don't necessarily need to scrounge points out of the mud, where that's where Kristaps Porzingis becomes so important. It's like, oh my God, we just hit a 32-foot three-point shot, and we had nothing going. And maybe that's game 2 for Cornet, though.
Well, yeah, you mentioned Porzingis, and there's like better and better, like more optimistic sort of hints about where he's at in his recovery coming out. Steve Bulpett had something today where he spoke to a Cavs insider, and they were like, we're not positive that we won't see Kristaps Porzingis at some point in this series. When KP does eventually come back, is there something positive to be gleaned from this Cornet experience? Like maybe Cornet can continue to spell and limit KP's minute load going forward?
Absolutely. I think it's a great call. And it depends on the matchups, obviously. But against like a Brunson, similar to Donovan Mitchell, you're going to be playing drop. And he's just really good in drop coverage. And you have these perimeter defenders coming over the top, forcing guys into some slightly more off balance, slightly more contested positions. Just like someone gets into foul trouble, here comes Luke Cornet. Horford's Horford's getting a little worn down, and here comes Cornet. And Tillman, man, Brad Stevens, really fucking good job. And again, this is like, do I expect Cornet maybe to be impactful in the finals or conference finals? Conference finals, yeah, especially if it's going to be the Knicks. But like, more importantly, he's allowing us to get there potentially in less games. Like if we get the Luke Cornet that people kind of, the idea of Luke Cornet before the season started or last year, maybe this game's a lot closer, and then we don't, who knows what happens. But he legitimately like helped push this lead out. Yeah.
He was fantastic. When we come back, we're going to have the Tatum discussion. Tatum has been somewhat like dominating the online discussion circles since this game, and for not all good reasons, which I think is a little overblown. We'll get to that, but first, here's a quick word from the sponsors of ours over at the Game Time app.
The NBA playoffs have been awesome so far, so it's hard to not think about trying to get to a couple of games. Game Time is an authorized ticket marketplace of the NBA, which makes getting playoff tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down closer to tip-off, which makes it great for last-minute decisions to maybe fly to Boston for the NBA Finals. My dad is literally on the way to Boston from Sydney right now for Game 1 of the second round, and he used Game Time to get his tickets. Game Time has awesome features like seat views. You get a sweet sweet panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, get a lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, and job loss protection. Take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CLNS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CLNS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
The Game Time app, basically, if you're going to buy tickets, use the Game Time app because it's a really good, intuitive, and modern platform for doing so. And you can use that code CLNS for a $20 discount on your $20, 20%. I should really get to know the materials before I promote them. For a discount on your purchase, a worthwhile discount. Jake, your dad was at the game tonight, used Game Time, got a discount, got himself in the building. And did he meet anyone special while he was in the building?
Big celebrity today. No, none other than the Dr. Bill Simmons.
Holy shit.
So Bill Simmons' dad.
Senior.
Senior in the concourse of TD Garden. I'm excited to hear what the conversation was like. I'm hoping that Dad passed on the podcast information, which I'm sure Dr. Simmons will pass directly to Bill, and we'll have an email
That's
in
how it
short
works.
order.
That's how it works, baby.
Yep. Dad's got boots on the ground for us in Boston, which is fantastic. But no, I mean, they were asleep by the time that I finished the game and reached out. But I've got a ton of content from the game today,
Awesome.
Which is awesome. Hopefully 12 shirts from the game to spread out amongst us. But yeah, Game Time helped get those tickets. They were like right on center court, like 12 rows back, reasonably priced. And yeah, man. And I guess Dad's undefeated in this year's playoff run in games that he attends. So actually, he's 3-0 in Celtics games attended in the Tatum Brown era in the playoffs. So we might have to keep him out there.
Crowd fund. Let's get him in Boston for the foreseeable future until mid-June. That'd be nice. All right, Jason Tatum, 7 of 19 from the floor, 0 of 5 from 3, perfect from the line on low volume, 4 of 4, dominant on the boards, 11 rebounds, 5 assists, 18 points, and a plus 18, 3 blocks as well you got to throw in there while limiting himself to 1 turnover only. So, and yet, like, looking at that line, like, not the Tatum game that I think a lot of people expect. He also had a sick block on Donovan Mitchell to start the third quarter to really set the tone there. But I will call it a bad offensive game from Tatum, even though I think, if you watch the game not even that closely, I think his impact is clear. And I mentioned he's been discussed a lot in various circles quite a bit since this game. There seems to be 2 camps here, Jake. One, Tatum is not a real superstar. Where's his scoring punch? Why doesn't he assert himself? We're going to need him to be better and more assertive the deeper we get into the playoffs. That's camp number 1. The other camp, I'm in this camp. Tatum is appropriately deferential. He understands his gravity and thus his role. He is out there every night performing from a superstar's perspective, making the ultimate sacrifice. So where do you stand? What side of the fence are you on?
He's playing the right way. I don't think the process was bad at all. I think there was a little bit where I thought he definitely settled a little bit too much for mid-range jump shots. But then there's plenty of people that are like, I want the mid-range jump shot to be more part of his game. He just has never been able to like consistently hit those mid-range jump shots at a high enough clip. Like it always comes out to like a weirdly uncanny consistent number at like 37 to 39% from the mid-range. And so if he's going to shoot that well from the mid-range, he may as well just be shooting threes. He should continue to shoot a couple of them because it's just good to keep the defense off balance, and defenses are still selling out to stop him in like the mid-post range. Excellent rebounding, excellent defense. I do think first half, and then he wasn't excellent. Defensively, there was like that one play he got blown by Donovan Mitchell, and I was like, he's been fine and good, but not excellent. And then in the second half, I thought the defense stepped up and rebounding was excellent throughout, which is he's our most important rebounder on this team. And then like you go back and watch like some of the zone possessions the Cavs were playing, and you freeze it. There's so much attention being paid to Tatum. A big reason why Jalen is able to do what he's doing is because like they're playing single coverage on him a lot, and we'll see if that adjusts and it ends up being more of a Tatum, more of a whoever game. But it's like Also, if he just hits 2 of those threes, he's 0 for 5. If he hits 2 of those threes and goes 9 for 19, then like the conversation's not happening. So I honestly think it could just be literally as simple as like he just went 0 for 5 from 3, and he's a better 3-point shooter than that. Like if he makes one of those threes, goes 1 for 5, and one of those mid ranges, then we're adding 5 points, and the efficiency doesn't look so bad. And it's like, who cares? And still, I'm in the who cares camp because he's playing the right way. He has the 1 turnover. He's not forcing it. There have been times in previous playoff runs where he hasn't had it going and he's been destructive. And that's, again, going back to the superpower of this team. There's so much talent. The emergence of Derek White, Jaylen Brown on a heater, like Peyton Pritchard. Drew Holiday wasn't super efficient tonight, but like there's so many weapons on this team. There's no point in forcing it when he doesn't have to. He's playing the right way. He is Jason Tatum. He's doing it in his own way. 25-point win. Everybody fucking calm down.
Yeah, and I know it's tough because then you look around the league and it's like Anthony Edwards is obviously the name that comes to mind. Like there's other superstar wings or superstar players who have no choice but to assert themselves and if successful are leading their teams to victories, and they grab all the headlines, they get the attention of the Bill Simmonses of the world, and we're sitting here singing the praises of Jason Tatum and frustrated that he's not putting himself into that conversation. But meanwhile, like playing winning basketball, they've lost 1 game in the playoffs thus far. I know the Wolves have lost none. Anthony Edwards has lost none, but he's playing winning basketball. And then you mentioned it, Jaylen Brown, he's going up against single coverage. Derek White going up against single coverage. Meanwhile, you look at Jason Tatum, how he's being guarded in this game. We've got a screenshot here that I took from our Discord channel, the link for which is in the description below. Look at how the Cavs are loading up on Jason Tatum. Like there's just nothing going there. So many passing options, so you have to forgive him for being differential. It's the way that he can play a winning game. Like just look at that. If you're listening to the audio podcast, it's just the entire Cavs team. 3 of them basically directly in front of Jason Tatum, and then 2 blocking any potential drive to the paint. Like just the game plan is clearly just to stop Tatum from being able to score in this one. I think he knows that. And then Anthony Modica had this on Twitter. I found it because Greeny retweeted it. It says Tatum knows, and then it's got 3 quotes from Bill Russell. One is, create unselfishness is the most important team attribute. Next one is, the most important measure of how good a game I played was how much better I made my teammates play. And then the final one is, the only important statistic is the final score. And Tatum right now, no matter how you feel about it, he's the embodiment of that mindset, of that approach, which is just like, win the fucking game. I don't care. Yeah, and at 26 years old, you can't overstate like the level of maturity that he is embodying to be at that point, because I don't think I've ever known or heard of a 26-year-old who has conducted themselves at that level of maturity in any profession. So props to Tatum. I know he's not putting up the numbers. I know he's not getting the headlines, but he's playing the way that he needs to play for this team to win.
So Bill Russell, obviously he knows what he's talking about, just a little bit about winning titles, right? And I had like a small bout of insomnia in the lead up to the Celtics game. And in order to like get myself to go to sleep, like I was like, what can I do before bed that's going to like really like just get this brain to settle down? Started reading the big book of basketball from the beginning. So I'm like, you know what? That's just like, that's a layup for my brain. It just settles right into like into a comatose state. And whatever you think of Bill Simmons, whatever, but that chapter on The Secret, where he has that conversation with Isaiah Thomas, and Isaiah Thomas talks about the sacrifice, and Larry Bird, all these guys, the comparisons between Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell, all the greats had to figure out the secret at some point. There have been some examples of talent winning out without needing the secret. Shaq and Kobe come to mind. But like, this Celtics team is at its best when Tatum is playing this way. The only thing that's bad and frustrating about this game, he didn't make enough shots. And like, there was at least one where he got hacked on, which he didn't get the call on. This is purely he missed jump shots game. If he makes 3 more jump shots, this is just not happening at all. That's literally it. Whereas it's funny, shooting variance is just a thing. It's just like Anthony Edwards is having a crazy hot shooting start to the playoffs. If that continues, then we might be fucked. But like, he's shooting like 60+% in the mid-range, 50+% on like pull-up threes and stuff, like a really ridiculously unsustainable type of shooting. Whereas like Tatum's kind of having the opposite right now. And it's like, well, if you want to, spin zone this thing, it's going to flip at some point in Tatum's favor. And we don't really need it to flip in Tatum's favor right now. Let's hope that he goes 50% from 3 in the finals. And then we're good to go.
That's the thing. Like, selfishly, you do want the occasional hint reminder that he can be quote unquote him when necessary. And like, he's been around for a while. JT is 26. He's been in the league for 7 years or so. Multiple instances of dominant playoff performances, particularly with his back up against the wall, and that's just not been a factor so far this year. That said, it would be nice to just have a recent reminder that he can be that guy where necessary. But at the same time, the reason we've been this good is because he hasn't asserted himself in that way. So we can kind of go around the track on this forever.
I think
it's
it could be
almost
both.
paradoxical.
It's like, we're going to need him to shoot better than 6 for whatever he was today if we're going to want to win the NBA Finals. I think that's
most likely
totally fair. But the point is, they can still win games against really good teams, even if he's not having incredible nights. Same with Anthony Edwards. His worst game of the playoffs, where he was like 3 for 15 or whatever it was, or 3 for 12, they won the game by 20. Like, both teams are fucking stacked. And and both players can really impact the game without scoring. And that's what I've always loved about Tatum. And that's what's frustrating about this whole Anthony Edwards thing. It's like turning me into a hater. It's like, I love Anthony Edwards' game because he's actually really good outside of putting the ball in the basket. It's like, really good defender, rebounds pretty well for his position, good leader. It's like, Devin Booker, that's the problem, is when all those pretty jump shots don't go in. Not a good enough defender for his position, not a plus rebounder, not enough size to really take over a game with just physicality. And so that's what I've always loved about Tatum and Anthony Edwards. I don't think either guy is really like a truly like transcendent offensive player, similar to how like Luka is struggling in this playoffs as well. Jokic, fuck. Everyone watching the playoffs, man, like Jokic, who has been described as like one of the greatest offensive players of all time, sucking. 3 games sucking strong for 3 games. Sucked last game. 3 bad games in a row for him. Yeah. So it's like, I don't even know where I'm going with this, but like these things,
it's the playoffs.
These things ebb and flow. You like, and who cares, man? We're trying to get wins here. I went back and had a look at the 22 finals run, and I like filtered by field goal percentage, and they were able to scrape by wins even with that roster, with Tatum shooting awfully. Biggest one, 3 for 17, game 1 of the finals. They won by 12. Tatum had their 13 assist game. Mm-hmm. He goes 5 for 16 in one of the Brooklyn games. They win by 7. Yes, they don't win nearly as many games as if you go to the other end of the filter, where it's all of his efficient games. They're like 8-1 in his most efficient games. The one game they lost to the Miami Heat, Game 6 in Boston, Jimmy Butler, 46 points. Sorry for reminding everybody about that. But it's like, the point is with Tatum, when he is efficient, there's just like the game's over. And with this version of the team compared to that 2022 finals run, it's like he's not as destructive when he's bad. And they're like not nearly as bad. Like, he's just getting to the line more. The processing's better. He's just impacting the game on offense, even without putting the ball in the basket, in a way that he wasn't able to in that finals run, where he had the most turnovers of all time in a playoff run, which is a misleading stat, but still.
Yeah, his flaw is like elite defense at his position, elite defensive rebounding, like regardless of position. He was great defensively on Evan Mobley when matched up with him on multiple possessions in this game. Very good playmaking, understanding of his gravity and the way that he manipulates an opposition and defense. That's the flaw. And then you build it from there in terms of his efficiency. So that's a pretty fucking good player to have on your team in a playoff run, I think. It can't really be exploited other than being baited into taking shit shots, which he did over Tristan Thompson, a step-back three-point attempt in this one, but that was kind of it. Others were just like makeable looks for him.
They're fine. He took 5 threes today. That's fucking growth and maturity, man. Like, how many times would he have been like, I got to try and find one, and then I'm good to go. Just didn't force it.
Mm-hmm. let's leave it there for now. We'll circle back on this. I think it's going to be something that comes up frequently as we get used to like what winning basketball in the playoffs looks like for this Celtics team. And like maybe surprisingly, I think is a fair way to put it, that it doesn't involve like just Tatum cooking every night. And this is like, meanwhile, without Porzingis, another elite option offensively on the court, he's still able to be that differential, which speaks to Executive of the Year, Brad Stevens, the roster that he's built.
That's right.
Let's get to missed points, and then we'll wrap up quickly.
I was going to say, one guy we didn't really talk about yet was Drew Holiday. And
yeah, okay.
Offensively, I thought was good from a process perspective, similar to Tatum. He ends up 6 for 14. He had 2 big threes. And he had 2 threes that went in and out as well. But I did not at any point feel like I had the Drew CTE moments. I didn't have any of that stuff. And I've been saying it. Dude, this guy makes winning plays. He gets big offensive rebounds. Big defensive rebounds. He's a really good rebounder for a guard, which is really important in the playoffs in a game where they dominate the rebounding battle. And then defensively, I thought he was like kind of a monster at times.
Yeah, I think it was late. Like, I think his 2 offensive boards came in the fourth quarter, and they were really timely. There was a sort of a ramped up effort on both ends by guys on the court to make sure that like they were stifled. The Cavs were stifled in the fourth quarter, and there was like no way for them to come back. And Drew generated multiple like second chance opportunities rather. And 14 shot attempts is high, I think, for the playoffs for Drew. But yeah, there wasn't any. I think there was 1 3 where he dragged up a 3 in transition under duress, where you're like, "What the fuck are you doing, Drew?" But that was the one moment, and outside of that, like I thought he was pretty sensible with his looks. And then defensively, quarterbacking the defense, calling out the coverages, getting over screens, really important with Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell for Derek White and Drew, the stock exchange, to be the best versions of themselves and be like slippery, be able to get skinny at a moment's notice and like jump through screens and keep a hand up in front of the ball handlers for the Cavs. Drew and Derek defensively were incredible in those facets of the game. So yeah, I didn't walk away from this one having the usual like, oh, I thought Drew could have been a lot better. Other than shooting slightly more efficiently, I thought his impact on the game was clear. And I can't say I'm getting used to it yet because it was a little bit hairy in that Heat series. I think similar to Jaylen Brown, like he's just not a player for a series against the Heat. But he was much improved in this one. Getting to missed points, Tillman, I don't think we really need to touch on. Like he just came on, I think, to help limit. Solid, yeah. I want to say he limited Al's minutes, but I think he only played with Al.
Yes.
And the reason I know that is because I was like, am I losing my vision, or are there 2 Als on the court right now? And like, shoot that 3 Al. Oh, wait, no, that's Xavier Tillman. The usual stuff, basically.
Yes. No, he was good. I thought, again, he makes plays. He's a dog. He fights. And the playoffs are so important from that perspective, man. Like, look at what the Knicks are doing, man. Getting to loose balls, getting offensive rebounds, just like, getting to a fucking ball is really important, and he's a guy that's just like going to battle every second he's out there, and he's strong. So that's all I really need from him.
I love Peyton Pritchard's game. 5 of 12. He ended up hitting 4 threes by the end. 4 of 10, 40%. That's actually quite good, but obviously missed a lot of makeable attempts for Peyton Pritchard early in this one.
In and out.
Yeah, and you could see him getting frustrated with it, but then he stuck with it. Throughout the game, he was really good defensively, and he's someone that the Cavs, I don't think, can really exploit to the level that like a fully healthy Miami Heat could, and probably future opponents, if we are lucky enough to make it to future rounds, we'll go at Peyton Pritchard as well, but the Cavs just don't really have that in their arsenal. He was great defensively in this one. He kept it up. And I thought he did a good job of like still picking his spots and shooting the opportunities that came to him without being sort of discouraged by his shooting performance to that point of the game. And it sort of culminated in this end of third quarter shot by Peyton
Mitchell
Pritchard.
on the launch. A little bit short. Rebound Pritchard. They got plenty of clock. Looking for some daylight. Elevate. Splash!
Way that his teammates surround him after that just says everything. Like, fuck yeah, P, like stick with it, man. Like, you're that guy. And that is a like sprinting in transition, pulling up on a dime just in front of the logo and just like splashing a three despite the poor shooting, the frustrating shooting to that point. It was just an awesome moment for Pritchard, I thought.
Dude, it's one of the coolest random micro skills I've ever seen. He's just like really good at end of quarter buzzer beaters, like because he gets up the court quick and he's got really deep range when it comes to his 3-point shot. And you could tell how pumped he was afterwards. Like Drew's like hyping him up. I wish I could see the other angles. I want to see like Pritchard's face and like what he's saying. I'm guessing he's being like, "This is the shit that I do. This is what I," and like, cause Drew like comes up to him and daps him up, and then Drew kind of starts to laugh because at how hyped Pritchard is. This is what I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And I just really enjoyed that interaction because Drew was like, "Yeah, Pete, get it, Pete. Let's go."
Yeah,
I loved that. I loved it. Because, yeah, man, he's going to have games. This is a series for him. I really like that. I like this series for Pritchard.
Hell yeah. Any other missed points? The one other one I have is the Cavs going zone for 2 possessions in the fourth quarter and just not being a good time for the Cavs at all. But it's like, oh, zone? That thing that we've seen 1,000 times in the last playoff series and like it's the thing that's been on the forefront of our minds in our preparation for last series. Oh, okay. Both possessions just completely eviscerated the zone. And they were like, okay, shit. And just like Homer Simpson fading back into the hedge.
Yeah.
Never mind. No more zone. See ya.
My bad. I'm wondering if it's like, well, the Heat do it. So, you know, they've beaten the Celtics before. Maybe we should try it. You should not try it. That time has passed.
Please keep trying it.
Yeah, but please try again.
Yeah.
That would be lovely. Yeah, no. Other than that, no, I don't have anything else that we covered at all.
All right, cool. Well, let's just zip around the league very quickly. The big news coming out of today is Mitchell Robinson effectively out for the rest of the playoffs. So he re-aggravated his ankle injury and he's going to miss 6 to 8 weeks. So effectively ending his season. And obviously big news for the Celtics if they do progress to the next round. The Knicks obviously up 1-0 under suspicious circumstances, some dodgy calls at the end of that Knicks-Pacers game. But, you know, they obviously, it's advantage Knicks right now, given that they have the lead in that series. If we do face them, their rotation was already crazy short because Tibbs is just a madman with his approach there. Now they're missing their starting big. Someone where you're like, we really need Kristaps back because we need to keep guys like Mitchell Robinson out of the paint. He's no longer a factor. Jake, reacting to this in real time, what do you think?
I know. Yes, I didn't know about the Mitchell Robinson thing. He didn't play. He only played 11 minutes in yesterday's game anyway. But they have Precious Achiuwa. He's not as good or as impactful as Mitchell Robinson.
The big
That's
sneeze.
like obvious. I mean, Tibbs was refusing to play him yesterday, even when Robinson was only playing 11 minutes. But I have to assume that fucking Achiuwa gets in the lineup for 10 minutes because it's one thing for a Hart and DiVincenzo and Brunson to play like 45 minutes. I'm not sure Hartenstein is going to be able to survive playing against this Pacers team because Isaiah Jackson, the backup big for the Pacers, was awesome yesterday. Reminded me of Rob Williams with the way that he was impacting the game with his athleticism. But yeah, great call by Nick NBA here, who, by the way, follow him on YouTube. He's got some awesome breakdowns on the Celtics. Josh Hart, small ball for 5 Eastern Conference minutes. I mean, why not, dude? He rebounds like a fucking center. But yeah, so I assume we see some Achiuwa, but again, that's objectively bad for the Knicks and objectively good for the Celtics. I don't know.
Yes.
That's only one way to slice that. But I can't believe the Knicks got away with it again. I can't believe that's like the second game in 2 rounds where the refs have just handed them a game. I don't think this was quite as bad as the Sixers game because like the Sixers were at least up 5. The Pacers at least, and the game was tied or they were down 1 at that point. But for them to not call, like to miss the foot violation, which was going to be a fast break layup, and then call that offensive foul, and then not call the offensive foul on DiVincenzo all in the span of like 60 seconds of game time was an atrocity. So that was nonsense. The Knicks should be down 0-1, but it is what it is.
Yeah, but we'll take them without their starting center if they do progress to the next round. That's looking spicy for the Celtics again. If we are lucky enough to progress, which taking from game 1, it seems like we're in the driver's seat there. Looking around the league elsewhere, OKC, Mavs, like I expected OKC to come out and win this game. I expect them to win that series. I didn't catch the full game, but I didn't see/hear of anything surprising there. You got something, Jake?
Well, I've only seen the score, so I haven't had a chance to watch it. I'm going to watch it after this, but looks like they blew him out. And Luka, from what I've seen, did not look very good again. People are
Correct.
saying he's injured or whatever. Tatum never gets those excuses. But Luka Doncic, 6 for 19. You know the difference between those guys? One of them plays fucking elite defense, and the other one doesn't. And that's a big part of the difference between those guys. But yeah, so that's that series. Yeah, I was super high on the Thunder going into that series.
For sure. Nuggets, T-Wolves.
Oh, boy.
I saw in my podcast feed right before we jumped on, as soon as I get off this, I'm going to pop that on, is like Bill Simmons, the title of the podcast was like, what if the T-Wolves sweep the Nuggets? I'm like, oh, fuck yeah, I gotta check in on this conversation. It's looking pretty spicy there.
Dude, on Bill Simmons' podcast on Monday, for us, Sunday for the US, he, to Russillo, was like, the odds for the Nuggets sweep are X. And Russillo laughed at him, as he should have. But hey, he saw it coming.
No one expected that game too.
No one.
Unbelievable.
But that was some of the best defense I've seen played like in my life in that first half. I think part of it is like Jamal Murray's not healthy either. I've never seen Jokic really look like that before. It's kind of worrying. Have you flipped on like which team you'd rather see or not?
Oh, every minute of every day, man. But like where I'm at, I talked about this in our Discord where like we had the luxury of a lot of the regular season having this feeling of like, I think we're going to win the championship this year. And then we lost a game to the Nuggets, and then we lost the second game to the Nuggets. And for a while there, it was like, this is the Nuggets league. We clearly aren't as good as them. We might win the East, but we're going to come up against this juggernaut, this reigning champion, and that's going to be really tough. And to see the Nuggets falter like this, I've got some of those positively intrusive thoughts coming back into my mind, Jake, and especially the Mitchell Robinson news. I'm like, things are really lining up for the Celtics, and are all these West teams going to beat each other up? And, is it just going to be not a given for the Celtics to win, but is it going to be as easy as possible of a run to the title for the Celtics? And this is where I start to catch myself because I somewhat believe in jinxes and stuff like that. But as far as a preferred opponent, I do think we match up better against the Wolves than the Nuggets. I think what the Wolves possess to slow down Jokic, we don't necessarily possess ourselves. And just like for like, roster piece to roster piece, we're a better matchup against the Wolves. So just the fact that there's like trouble in them waters just makes me feel better, makes me sleep better at night.
Yeah, I'm absolutely there. We don't have an answer for Jokic in the way that the Timberwolves do. We just don't. I would definitely rather play the Timberwolves than the Nuggets. A little piece of what the Timberwolves' success is coming from is like the Phoenix defense is awful, and the Nuggets defense has been bad for the whole entire playoffs and was awful in that game yesterday. Part of that was because they couldn't fucking they couldn't score. And so the Wolves were in transition for the entire game. So it's like hard to set your defense, but KCP looks hobbled. So like if he's going to be hobbled, then they don't really have someone to put on Anthony Edwards. And so he's just creating havoc all over the place. So OKC's defense is legit. And I think that they can give the Wolves real problems on that end. But yeah, give me the Wolves. Our defense, I think, matches up very well. With those guys. And the Nuggets don't have the ball handling to really take advantage of Cat out there, especially like Jamal Murray has to be like at peak form. And right now he's like not. It's two things. I think the Wolves defense is insane and Murray's not right. And the thing with the depth
KCP too.
KCP, exactly. So those two guys not at 100%. They have no depth. They have no depth. They have nothing. And I was someone who was like, I have so much faith as long as they've got those five guys healthy. I'm a massive believer in Jokic, but I mean that's fucking out the window at this point. I'd be stunned really if the Nuggets came back.
Yeah. I'm catching up with my Nuggets friend Dice.
Yes.
Next week the plan is to watch some playoff games together, including a Wolves Nuggets game. And I cannot wait. It's gonna be good.
Yeah.
Some potential Schadenfreude, some meta Schadenfreude for the next Schadenfreude report.
Perfect. Yes, make sure you tell them that everybody from the first to the floor team and family says hello, Dice. Sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear this is happening to you.
Like I said, he knows that he's part of first of the floor lore at this point.
Excellent.
Not a happy man there. Shout out Dicey if he's listening. All right, we've got to go. So before we do, please hit that like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel. Clicking the like button, subscribing, it tells the YouTube algorithm that people like this show and it puts the show in front of more people. Our goal is obviously to build as big an audience as possible because that makes us eligible for bigger guests. I've said it 1,000 times, but Brian Scalabrine apparently doesn't get out of bed for less than 20,000 subscribers, where we're bordering on 4K subs. I think we can probably get there in the next few days if people continue to subscribe and like at this rate. So please do us a solid and enact those calls to action. That's going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for joining us. I think the plan is, pending availability, to do another pod tomorrow with Spoonie and potentially a guest at TBC on that one. But regardless, we'll be back here live on YouTube immediately after Game 1. And then again with another edition of Celtics Late Night. Jake Eisenberg, love your work, mate. Until next time, go Celtics.